Hey everyone, Pure Insanity here. This video is a full walkthrough of the Unmoored World in Dragon's Dogma 2. I'll show you how to save all the cities as quickly and painlessly as possible so you can make the most of your Unmoored World run. If you have already begun the Unmoored World, it can take a little more time to get started, but if you haven't, there's some easy things to do to prepare. First is to place a port crystal in Bakbattahl. If you have another, I recommend placing the second one in the Volcanic Island camp. This will cut a good amount of time off beginning travel so you can get to the fun stuff more quickly. You also want to make sure to stock up on curatives, fairy stones, and wake stones. It's best to do this before you start the Unmoored World, but you can of course do this as soon as you get storage access in the Unmoored World. You get dropped off in the Unmoored World without your main pawn, so battles can be a bit challenging at first if you're under level 50. There are also no autosaves, so death can revert a lot of progress or even make you start over. If you are brand new to the Unmoored World, please watch my tips and tricks video first before continuing the rest of this video. If you weren't prepared and already started the Unmoored World and you're having a tough time getting to Bakbattahl, it doesn't matter if you go to the Sea Shrine first. If you go to the Sea Shrine first, you can get storage access so you can stock back up on curatives and adjust your pawns if that makes it easier to get to Bakbattahl. To get your main pawn back, see Faces in the Magic Lab. Faces is going to point out you were gone for a month, which is going to get repeated a lot in the Unmoored World. Once you get your main pawn back, exit to the city, which will start a cutscene and your next quest. The reason why you'll want as much time as possible in the Unmoored World is to farm materials to get your Worm's Life crystal gear and or upgrades. If you're starting out at a low level and you need to do a bit of farming first after you get your main pawn, that works too. You'll have time. I recommend getting a pawn with the Logistician specialty if gear and or upgrades are a priority. If you have all the top gear already, then these strategies are going to allow you to gain all the XP from the quest and still leave a lot of time for hunting more monsters or any other goals such as speed runs or completion runs. Getting back to Bakbattahl, Facius is going to join you when you get outside. The path to the statue is blocked, so Facius is going to lead you around the obstacles. Monsters were summoned in the city that you'll have to fight through along the way. Watch out for the roly-polies on the stairs if you're squishy because they can one-shot you. And before you reach the statue, there's going to be a big fight where Facius will likely die. I think this is intentional. He gives a comment that sacrifices have to be made. I have had a time or two where he didn't die, but most of the time he seems to get into a battle or predicament which ensures his demise. So use a wake stone on him to revive him. Once you reach the statue, destroy it, then head back to the lab to see Ambrosius. If you defeated Talos in the Guardian Gigantus quest, he'll give you a quest when wills collide. At the minimum, he'll have an escort quest to take him to the Sea Shrine. If you get the When Wills Collide quest, the next step is still to go to the Sea Shrine, because that will progress the Halls of the First Dawn quest. Before you leave Bakbattahl, double check your inventory and make sure you're well stocked on curatives, fairy stones, and wake stones. Visit the Vocation Guild and Riftstone if needed. Your party should be spec'd for undead and drakes. There are still the normal griffins, ogres, and cyclops, but those aren't the main focus, and you should still be able to defeat them without necessarily being spec'd for them. When you arrive at the Sea Shrine, you'll talk to Rotheus, aka the Mad Sovereign, to advance the questline. Examine the port crystal to open up port crystals at the Sea Shrine, Vermond, Sacred Arbor, and Harv. There will be a room at the Sea Shrine with storage access and a bed to rest/save when needed, but not now. There will be the Worm Crystal NPC, Dragonforge. He will be there, and you should check out what he's got because there may be something new depending if this is your first time or second time or later. But either way, spend your extra Worm's Life crystals if you have them. As you evacuate towns, the other towns' NPCs will end up relocating in the Sea Shrine as well. That actually makes it really convenient at the end. All the evacuated weapon/armor vendors will be in the same area, making it super convenient to add and or adjust enchantments. The first location destroyed is a Volcanic Island camp, so make your way there first. Find Ernesto and warn him. He'll instruct you to help evacuate Gustafer and his wife. Set your port crystal here if you haven't already, and then head out west from the front of the camp. The first step is going to be killing the dragon, then on to pick up the evacuees. If you're having difficulties beating the dragon, just get the evacuees first. The quest will reward Worm's Life crystals, which you can use to better improve your gear. Plus, you don't actually have to kill the dragons. The quest goal here is just evacuation. The dragon fights aren't much different from the normal dragon fights. One of the unmoored dragon types looks a lot different, more like a worm than a dragon, but it's still the same attacks. The big differences are how they move around and where their weak spots are located. At level 50, the fights were challenging at first, but at level 65 with max gear, the challenge becomes how quick you can end the fight. After the first dragon fight, my main pawn had taken a bit of max HP reduction, so it was time to forfeit him before heading back to town where I can refresh my other pawns as well. Chuck your main pawn off a cliff, let the revive expire to forfeit your main pawn, and then touch any rift stone to bring your main pawn back with max HP restored. Then pick up the evacuees and use a fairy stone to port back to the Volcanic Island camp. Ernesto will be talking to Lamond, and he'll ask you to try to convince Lamond to join the evacuation. I did not do the Lamond Hot Springs quest, which is possibly why Lamond will decline both options, but I'm not 100% on that. At this point in time, I also recommend dismissing and rehiring your other two pawns to restore their max HP. Before you rehire them, do make sure to double check their vocation and skills, as these can change since the last time you've hired them. And of course, you can forfeit your main pawn and dismiss/rehire your other two pawns as much as you need to restore their max HP to avoid having to use things like all heal elixirs. I recommend getting thieves with pilfer/plunder, as they can steal fairy stones, wake stone shards, and rare upgrade resources that can be difficult to get and are very valuable in the Unmoored World. After evacuation of the Volcanic Island camp is complete, head east to the excavation site. Do not take the skylift. First off, it's slow. Secondly, at this point in the game, there's a cutscene when you get to the excavation site that will leave your pawns stranded in the skylift. So if you take the skylift, you'll have to wait a while for your pawns to port back to you. defeat the golem, and Enrique should prompt you to follow him. The Overseer was using a God Sway on the pawns, and the pawns are consequently refusing to evacuate. Backtrack out, go by the curative vendor, and there is a house behind it with a note you can go into. Then make your way up the hill, and there'll be another house with a deceased Overseer and a diminished God Sway. Take the God Sway back to Enrique, and the excavation site evacuation will be complete. The next dragon location is just outside the excavation site. Defeat that dragon, and then port to the sea shrine to rest if you haven't yet. I like to rest at this point because it's the halfway point, and as you saw with the skylift, things can go wrong. If you rest at this point as well, the 2 vendors from the Volcanic Island will be available. Gustaffer also offers the Dwarvish enhancement style, which boosts knockdown stats if you're interested in that. One of the reasons to invest some extra time in the Unmoored World is to optimize your enhancements. Vermont enhancements boost physical and magic stats balanced. Bakbattahl favors physical. Sacred Arbor favors magic. And Dwarvish favors knockdown. If you have enhancements that you want to change, you can reset your enhancements at the Dragonforged NPC. The next location is Sacred Arbor. The port crystal is right next to the dragon location and the town, making it a very convenient location. Go ahead, port there, and defeat the dragon. Evacuating Sacred Arbor is a completely different story. It's a bit complicated. First off, you have to have completed the Trials of Archery questline, saving Dorian, and the Dulled Regalia Sword questline. If you didn't do both of these quests, I just skipped to Vermont at this point. You also will need a rotten apple and a rotten fish. If you don't have those in your inventory, you as well might want to skip to Vermont at this point. For those ready and wanting to take the time to evacuate the elves, start off by grabbing a pawn that speaks Elvish if you don't already have one in your group. You'll find Glinder is in the middle of the city, who will take you to speak with his father about evacuation. After the cutscenes with his father, go see Dorian at the Arbor Heart. She will tell you that Scale Cinder is required to heal the Arbor Heart, and the blacksmith in Bakbattahl can help you get it. This is where the rotten apple and rotten fish come into play. After you speak with Sarah, the blacksmith's apprentice, she informs you that the blacksmith would likely part with some Scale Cinder for his favorite Elvish dish, which happens to be made with rotten apples and rotten fish. So, port back to Sacred Arbor, give Dorian the ingredients, port back to Bakbattahl, go see Sarah, then follow Sarah to the mine that has Scale Cinder. Now, it's at this point in time that I ran into a dragon along the way, which is worth pointing out. You can have dragon events in the Unmoored World. I've actually had a dragon, griffin, and ogre all at once, so be prepared at all times. There are 3 Scale Cinders you'll need to find in the mine. Once you have all 3, exit and you'll be prompted to turn them in. You'll need to port back to Sacred Arbor, progress the questline some more, and you'll get an Arbor Heart Cutling. The elves will only be convinced to relocate if the Arbor Heart Cutling takes root at the Sea Shrine. So, port back to the sea shrine, plant the Arbor Heart Cutling, and finally, for the love of Jesus, you'll have to port one final time to Sacred Arbor to let them know that the Cutling took root, and then the elves will evacuate. And just in case you weren't keeping track, if you are evacuating the elves, you'll need an additional 6 fairy stones. So if you don't have them on hand, make sure to stock up. Evacuating Vermont is the easiest of all 4 evacuations. Port to Vermont and speak with Captain Brandt at the tavern. He'll tell you to go see Sven, but you can't just see Sven first because Sven will tell you to speak with Captain Brandt first. If you didn't fully investigate the Queen Regent, you should stop by her room to pick up a note in the ornate box. Give that note back to Sven, and you're ready to go get the ox carts. A merchant has taken all the ox carts for himself, and you'll need to shake him up, quite literally. Grab him for a moment, then he'll flee, leaving all the ox carts available. Go back to see Sven, and the evacuation will be complete. The more challenging part to Vermont is getting to the dragon's location. You can get there from either side, but there's a lot of climbing around and finding paths, and it depends also on your skills, how easy or difficult it's going to be getting to that location. After you defeat the Vermont dragon, a final dragon beacon appears at the Sea Shrine. This is the final encounter prior to starting a new game, so make sure to rest after Vermont and spend as much time as you want/can in the Unmoored World. Once you use the Godsbane blade here, there's no going back. You'll be transported to the back of the dragon again, but you won't be using the Godsbane blade or have access to your inventory. The credit scenes will start rolling, and as you make your way up the dragon will throw you onto the back of his wing, where you'll have to escape the brine and death by fire. If you die, you can try again as many times as you want. The path I have in this clip is the easiest I have found by far. So there you have it, folks. A full Unmoored World walkthrough. If you rest at the halfway point and after Vermont, you'll have a lot of extra time to spend in the Unmoored World however you want. I believe it is up to 12 days total, but I'm not 100% certain at the time I'm making this video. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're loving Dragon's Dogma 2 as much as I am. Until next time, folks.